Hello there. Thanks for stopping by Max's Cards and Dice Dugout. This is episode 152. And this time out, we are in Bloomington, Minnesota at Metropolitan Stadium for game number 3 of the 1968 Minnesota Vikings project. We're using Downey Games Momentum Football. And before we get to setting up the game, let's take a quick look at the Vikings schedule. So you can see this is game 3 against the Bears. They're back at home. Their record is 1-1 right now. They were quite frankly surprised by the Falcons in week 1 at home, losing 37-31, but rebounded against the Packers in Milwaukee for game number 2. So this game number 3 took place on September 29th, 1968. In real life, the Chicago Bears won that game 27-17. So first we're going to do a roll for some of the position players, quarterbacks and punters. Both of these teams have more than one quarterback and punter that can start. I have the team charts off camera here. If you're familiar with this game, you know what they look like. If not, you can check the one of the previous videos I did. I believe I showed the cards there, or Dave Gardner has showed the cards in some of the videos he did. Okay, we're going to read the red die first. And first for the Bears quarterback, we roll a 35, and that is going to be Virgil Carter. Now, he does not affect the Bears' offensive grade, but he will be the starter for this game. So Virgil Carter gets the start for the Bears, and the Bears punter will be 54, Bobby Joe Green. All right, now for the Minnesota Vikings quarterback, that's Joe Kapp. And handling the punting chores in this game for Minnesota will be 13, and that's King Hill. All right. So, I had filled out the offensive and defensive grades for Chicago because I knew Carter starting would not change the offensive grade. Okay, and we're not going to get any changes for Minnesota either, so they're a D on offense and a B on defense. And the first thing we have to do is determine the defensive control factors. First, for the Bears, their offense is a D, with Minnesota's defense being a B. It'll be 2-6 and 11-12. 2-6 and 11-12. Now for the Vikings, they also have a D offense, but the Bears' defense is a C, so that's 2-6 and 12. So there's a slight difference there in the defense control factor. So it's 2-6 and 12 for Minnesota. All right, so we're ready for the opening kickoff. I'm going to say the blue die is the Vikings, white die is the Bears, and the tie goes to the home team. And so the Vikings are going to get the first possession now. The initial momentum, Minnesota's home field momentum to start a game is a 0. So, and they're going to have the first possessions, which is going to be a kickoff. So we take 1 mark off the clock for the opening kickoff. Now, Minnesota does not have, neither team has a opportunity to return a touchdown return a kickoff for a touchdown. Minnesota does have a slight opportunity to return a punt. So we'll take a look at that, when that situation arises. So, first possession for Minnesota. First, we determine the time, and that's going to be 5 ticks, the high and low dies. Okay, and we add them up, 5, 7, 9. So that's going to be at 13:09. And what do we have here? We have a 3. So that does fall into the defensive control factor for Minnesota. And we rolled a 24. So we're going to look at Chicago's, and that's a QB sack. Now, since individual sack data was not recorded back in 1968, we don't have to, or we won't be able to look up who had that sack, but we're going to roll these two die again to determine. It was a 9-yard loss. Okay, no score. And Minnesota has to punt. So looking at King Hill's punting range, there's no chance for him to have a punt blocked, but we'll see if there's a return. Well, it really doesn't matter. No, we don't even need to check that. I apologize, because the Bears cannot return a punt for a touchdown. However, the sack does change momentum, and it shifts 1 to Chicago. And so for their first possession, and I got to double check this. Okay, it does not automatically get read. Some momentum changing plays will cause the following drive to automatically come from the offense's card. That's not the case here. So here we roll for Chicago's first possession. We got a 6 and a 2 for 8 off the clock. And we have 10:15, so it's going to be at 10:30, or excuse me, 10:35. And we have a 5, which falls in Minnesota's defensive control factor, or excuse me, the Bears. And we rolled a 46, and a 46 is a key penalty. So this can either sustain the drive or force the Bears to punt. So on a, and I apologize, I got to look at this one again because it doesn't come up that often. All right. Key penalty. It's always in favor of the team holding momentum, so it's going to be a defensive penalty. And they're going to get a free dice roll. All right, so they're going to get a free dice roll, but we ignore the defensive control factor, and it's a 41, and it's coming off the Bears' offense, and it turns out to be a punt. And okay, that goes on another line because there is some more time taken off the clock. It's the 2 lowest dice, so that's 2 ones for a 2. And it's 1, 2, 9, 10, 11. So that's going to be 9.51. So we cross off there. It's a punt. Now we have to check because Bobby Joe Green can have a punt blocked. So we're going to read the red die first. So we'll check first to see if the punt's blocked. And it will not be blocked. And now we'll check for a return. And no, there is no return on the punt. So it's either downed or went out of bounds or it was a touchback. And momentum stays with Chicago. Minnesota gets their next possession. And we're still in the first quarter. So we'll roll for that. And we got a 5 and a 1 for 6. And it's 10 seconds, so it'll be at 7:50. All right, we rolled a 3 on the blue and yellow dice, so that's going to fall within the Bears' defensive control, and the roll is a 52. And a 52 is a field goal attempt. So Mr. Nerf, Fred Cox, is going to attempt a field goal. All right, so Cox is good. 11 to 46. Red die first. And that is a miss. That's the first miss for Fox this season. We didn't look at the stats. I'll show them next game. But Fox, up until this point, had been perfect on extra points and field goals. And we'll roll again to determine the length of the field goal that he missed. And so we multiply these two. That's 16. And add 8. He missed a 24-yard field goal. And a missed field goal is another momentum-changing play. So now Chicago is at +2 on momentum here in Bloomington. All right, next possession for the Bears. And we got a 6 and a 1 for 7 ticks. Add up the die, 10, 12, 13. So it'll be 533 in the first quarter. We rolled a 5. So that falls in Minnesota's defensive control factor, and a 62. And that is going to be a touchdown run for the Bears. And we'll roll to see who that was. It's a 54. Quarterback Virgil Carter runs for the touchdown. And the extra point by Percival, Mac Percival. And he's automatically good, but we'll roll it anyway. There is an optional rule where, like on a roll of a 66, you can re-roll and see if it's possibly blocked. But he had none blocked, so actually that is not an option. I stand corrected, but that is good. And the Bears take a 7-0 lead. They already have full momentum. So we got the next possession for the Vikings. There was no kickoff return for a touchdown, but we do take one tick off the clock for the kickoff. And here's the possession for the Vikings. We got a 6 and a 2 for 8. And it'll be 11, 13, 16, so 236 in the first. And let's see. We have an 8, so that falls outside of the range. So we're going to look at the Vikings offense, and a 35. And a 35 is a punt. So the Bears have been stingy so far. No chance for a punt return for the Bears, so we just continue on. They still have +2 momentum. And here's the next possession for Chicago. 8 more ticks off the clock. It's going to take us into the second quarter. So we'll change that to the second quarter there. We got a 10, 16, 18. It'll be 14:58 very early in the second quarter. And we rolled a 6, so that falls in Minnesota's defensive range, and it's a 66. And that is a touchdown pass for Virgil Carter. that's Carter. 2. Well, 62. Cecil Turner. And we'll roll all 4 die again. See for the length. And this is going to be a long one because we rolled a double. So we got a 33 for Cecil Turner. And let's see what that will be. That'll be 3. Okay, we got 6 on these 2 die. 6 times 6 is 36. Plus 8. It's a 44-yard reception for a touchdown. Somebody got burned on that one. All right, extra point for Percival is automatically good. And the home faithful are shocked early in this one. PAT is good. At the end of the first quarter, it was 7-0. And now it's 14-0 early in the second in favor of the Bears. All right, next possession for the Vikings. The Bears controlling momentum. Let's see, we got a 7, so that is where momentum comes into play. So Chicago has momentum right now, so it's going to be 64 coming off their defensive card, and it's a touchdown pass for the Vikings. But let me check the time, which I forgot to do. All right, so we got 6 and 2 for 8. And 11, 13, 17. It'll be a 12-17. And I'm going to roll again. And that touchdown pass from Joe Cap to who else but Gene Washington. Cap to Washington. Roll for the yardage. All right, it was only a 6-yard because the blue and the yellow die were not doubles. We just add the red and white together, so it was a 6-yard touchdown. And now Cox, the extra point. And Cox is good on 11-65, and it's good. And now it's 14-7 in favor of the Bears. The touchdown pass does slide momentum back 1 mark, but the Bears still have momentum. So here's their next possession. 6 and 1 for 7 off the clock. And 7, 10, 13, so it'll be 9:53. And we rolled a 4, so that falls in Minnesota's defensive control range. It's a 63, and it's another touchdown pass for Virgil Carter. So Chicago answers back. And that's going to be Carter 2. Actually, I only needed to roll the red and white. And we got a 36, and that's going to be Austin Denny. So Carter to Denny. And now we roll all 4. And it's going to be an 11-yard touchdown. And Percival, the extra point. And he's automatically good on the extra. Oh, wait, we rolled a 66. So the way I'm doing this is now he has to roll an 11, and it'll be blocked. And no, it's not. So the extra point is good, and the Bears lead 21-7, and get that second momentum back as we continue on here in the second quarter. All right, Minnesota's next possession involves a kickoff, so we take one tick mark off of the clock, and we have a 22. We have 4, which falls within the defensive control factor, and we roll a 63 and a 63 for the Bears. Well, I forgot the total time again. So it's 8 off the clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6, 8, 10, 13, 6:53. All right, so 63 coming off the Bears defense is another touchdown pass for Joe Cap. And that's going to be Cap to 26. You guessed it. Gene Washington. I believe that's his 4th touchdown of the season. Now we'll roll again to determine yardage. And another short one. 6-yard touchdown reception. Extra point by Fred Cox is good. All right, so Cox, the extra point is good. And it's 21-14 in favor of the Bears. And I just realized I did not take a tick mark off for the Vikings kickoff after their first touchdown. All right, so now that slides momentum back 1, but it's still in favor of the Bears. In their next possession for the kickoff, take 1 more off the clock, and we'll roll for their possession. All right, we got a 5 and a 2 for 7 ticks. And 13-15, that's going to be at 4:15 in the second quarter. Blue and yellow are a 7, so that goes by momentum, which of course belongs to the Bears. And so that's going to come off their offensive card, and it's a 53, and a 53 is a field goal attempt. And Mac Percival is good on an 11-51. So the field goal is good from Percival. And now we'll determine the length. Uh, 18 plus 7 is 25, plus 15 is 40. And Percival's long is 51, so he does make a 40-yard field goal. I mean, you cannot, the yardage on the field goal can't be greater than his long on the card. But it's a good field goal for Percival. I hope I explained that properly. And what did I say? It was a 40-yarder? Well, let's see. 9 plus 7, or excuse me, 9 times 7. No, excuse me. Oh, please forgive me here. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 7 is 25, plus 17 is 35, 42. So it's a 42-yard field goal. And that makes it a 10-point lead, 24-14. Now, the only time a field goal changes momentum is if it allows the team to take the lead or tie the game. No, excuse me, only to take the lead. But Chicago still has momentum here in a second. And there's going to be a kickoff, so we take another tick off the clock. No chance to return it for a touchdown. Minnesota's next possession, we roll a 10. That is outside defense control range, so it's going to come off their offensive card, and we rolled a 15, and that is an interception. Well, first I got to check the time again. I apologize, I keep messing that up. All right, so it's 6 ticks off the clock. 1, 2, 3. We got 15, 16, so that would be at 1:36, right before the end of the half. And as I mentioned, it's an interception. So cap, INT. And let's see, there is a chance for a interception run back, very slight one. Has to be an 11 or a 12. Ooh, it's a 14, almost. But it was not run back for a touchdown, but the interception is Kurt Gentry. So Gentry with the interception. That's a momentum-changing play, and Chicago has a +2 momentum again. And they're going to get, I'm assuming, the final possession of the half here. And they'll get the ball to start the third quarter. All right, so 6 and a 2 for 8. And that's going to run the clock out. So it's end of half. And the score is 24-14 favor of the Bears. Bears scored 17 points in the second. Minnesota scored 14. They still have momentum, and they're getting the ball to start the third quarter. That's the Bears. Okay, so here in the third quarter, we'll take 1 tick mark off for the kickoff. And the Bears' first possession, we rolled a 4. That falls in Minnesota's defensive control range. And a 22 is an interception. It's an INT. And let's see if that's run back for a touchdown. They need an 11-13 plus another requirement. They rolled a 15, so that's not returned for a touchdown. And we rolled a 15, and that's going to be Paul Krause. That's his second interception of the season. Okay, and that is a momentum-changing play. So momentum slides back to +1 for Chicago. And Minnesota gets their first possession of the second half, trailing by 10. All right, so we roll a 10. And that does not fall in the defensive control factor. So we're looking at Minnesota's offense. It's a 21. Well, let's get the time once again. 7 ticks. And we got 10, 11, 13. So that would be 12:36. And looking at Minnesota's offensive chart, a 21 is another Joe Cap interception. So now we're going to roll to see if the Bears can return this for a touchdown. So they roll a 15, which is not in the range. It's an 11-13, so no, it's not returned for a touchdown. And the person who intercepted, the player who intercepted the ball, was Bernie McRae. So McRae with the interception. And the momentum goes back to +2 for Chicago. And their next possession here in the third quarter. Got a 5 and a 2 for 7 off the clock. And 6 and 5 is 11, so at 10 minutes and 11 seconds, we got a 7, so that is where momentum comes into play on the 7 and a 22. And a 22 is a quarterback sack. So the Vikings record a sack. And roll all 4 dice. Well, we don't know. We have no individual sack statistics, but it was a 7-yard loss. And the score remains 24-14. But a sack is a momentum-shifting play, so now it's +1 for Chicago. And the Vikings get their next possession here in the third quarter, trailing 24-14. All right, we got a 5 and a 1 for 6 ticks. And 9, 10, 13, so at 8, 13. We rolled an 8. That does not fall within the defensive control for the Bears. So we'll be looking at the Vikings offensive drive result, and we get, a 41. And a 41 is a key run. All right. So on the key run, we have Minnesota has the opportunity to keep the drive alive on a key third down play. We're going to roll all 4 dice. And we're going to check the player. So the player is going to be 62, and the die result is going to be 13. So if we look under key run for Minnesota, I said 62 and 13. If we look at key run for Minnesota, it's Clint Jones, and a 13 is a first down. All right, so the key run results in a first down, and Minnesota keeps the drive alive. And we will record Jones's name, because when I go to calculate the stats, he'll get an extra carry for that key run. All right, and that is a momentum-changing play. And guess what? The momentum's back at 0 for the first time in this game. And Minnesota keeps the drive alive. And now we roll all 4 die again, but the timing is going to be the 2 lowest dice, not the highest and lowest. And that's just to represent the continuation of the current drive. All right, so highest and the lowest, that's 8. So it's still 8 off the clock. Or excuse me, the 2 lowest, 3 and 2, that's 5. I apologize. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11, 13, 16. It'd be 636 in the third. And we got a 5, so that does fall within the Bears' defense, and a 56. And a 56 for the Bears on their defensive drive result is a touchdown run. And running that one in for the Vikings, Joe Cap himself. All right, so now we'll check the length of the run. Okay, they're not equal, but it was a 12-yard. When I say they're not equal, if you roll doubles on the blue and yellow die, you would then look at the long column for the run. If they're not a double, you just add these up. So it was a 12-yard touchdown run for Joe Cap. And Fred Cox will kick the extra point. And he's good on everything but a 66. So the extra point is good. And it's now a 3-point lead for the Bears, 24-21. And that touchdown moves momentum over to the Vikings. All right, so we're still in the third, and we take 1 tick off the clock for the kickoff, and here's the possession for the Bears. All right, so we got a 4 and a 2 for 6 ticks. Eight, 10, 12. So that's 4 minutes and 12 seconds in the third. And we rolled a 6. That does fall in Minnesota's defense. And a 42 is a punt. So Minnesota's going to get the ball back here. Now, Bobby Joe Green has a slight chance to have this punt blocked. It's not blocked. So now we'll check for the return. And there is a return on this punt. Now, Minnesota does have a slight chance for a punt return for a touchdown from Charlie West. Okay, almost. They needed to roll an 11 or 12. They rolled an 11. But they also had to roll a 21 or less. And this was a 56. So it's just a punt. Charlie West or Bobby Bryant returned it, but not for a touchdown. So the score remains 24-21. Momentum remains +1 with Minnesota. We're still in the third. And let's see what happens here. Okay, we got a 4 and a 1 for the timing for a 5. And let's see, 4, 6, 8, 228 in the third. 2 does fall in within the defensive control factor for the Bears. And we roll a 24, and a 24 is a QB sack. Okay, as I mentioned before, there are no individual sacks stats, but we'll roll these 2 die, and it was a 7-yard loss. So unfortunately for the Vikings, they can't capitalize and take the lead or tie the game. But a quarterback sack is a momentum-changing play, so momentum is now neutral. The neutral nod does go to the home team. All right, so the next drive for the Bears, and that's a 6 and a 1 for 7. And we are right at the end of the third quarter, 9, 10, 14. 14 seconds to go in the third. And we have a 10. That does not fall in within Minnesota's defensive control. And a 13. And a 13 is a fumble. Now we have to check. Minnesota can't return a fumble for a touchdown. They apparently didn't do that in 1968, so there's no opportunity range there. But we will check to see who recovered the fumble. 25. Carl Kasulke. So it's Kasulke with the fumble recovery. And that is a momentum-changing play. So momentum swings back +1 for the Vikings. And we're going to go into the fourth quarter here. Vikings have the ball, trailing by 3. All right, so got a 6 and a 2 for 8 ticks off the clock. We got 9, 11, 13. This will be 12:36. And we rolled an 8. That does not fall within the Bears' defensive control factor. And a 23. So 23 coming off the Vikings' offensive results is another quarterback sack. That might be the 5th or 6th sack this season given up by the Vikings offensive line. And that's a 9-yard loss. Once again, the Vikings can't capitalize on the fumble recovery this time. And that is a momentum-changing play, so the momentum is back to neutral. Chicago has the ball here early in the 4th quarter. Their next possession. You got a 5 and a 1 for 6 ticks. And 10, 11, 12, so it'll be 10-32 in the 4th quarter. And we rolled a 6. That does fall within Minnesota's defense, and a 15, and that is another fumble by the Bears. They're giving the Vikings opportunities to tie this game or take the lead. And that fumble was recovered by, because it cannot be run back for a touchdown. 41, Gary Larson. So Gary Larson gets the fumble. Score is still 24-21 in favor of the Bears. Momentum shifts back, +1 for the Vikings. And it's their ball here in the 4th. Can they take advantage of this turnover? Let's see. Got a 5 and a 1 for 6 off the clock. I got 10, 11, so that will be 8:31. Okay, we rolled a 4. That falls within the Bears' defensive control. And a 52 is a field goal attempt. So the Vikings are going to try to tie this game here. Fred Cox, he's good on an 11-46. And that is up and good. This game is tied at 24. And the length of that field goal was 4 times 1 is 4, plus 10 is 14, plus 17 is, what did I say? 4 plus 10, 14, plus 17 is 31. So it was a 31-yard field goal. And the game is tied. And because the field goal tied the game, it is a momentum-changing play. So now Minnesota is +2. And one of the things I really like about this game, you know, this graphic you get from the momentum, it kind of shows you how the momentum changes throughout the game. Kind of interesting. Anyhow, Chicago gets the ball. 1 tick off the clock for the kickoff, and here's their possession. So this is a short one. We got a 3 and a 1 for 4 ticks. And we got 5, 6, 9. It'll be 6:49 in the 4th. 6 falls within Minnesota's defensive control factor, and a 21 is an interception. Okay. First, we got to check to see if the interception's returned for a touchdown. On 11-13 on the red and white die, it's a possibility. No, it's a 14. But we will roll again to determine who had the interception. 44. And it's local hero from my hometown, Ed Shirachman, with the interception. And we are tied at 24. Late in the 4th quarter here. Minnesota, that is a momentum-changing play, but Minnesota is already +2 on the momentum. So here's their chance late in the game to take the lead and try to win their first game at home this season. All right, here's the possession. We got a 6 and a 1 for 7. 10, 11, 16. Be 436 in the fourth. All right, we have a 10. That does not fall within Chicago's defensive control factor. And we roll a 15. And a 15 is another Joe Cap interception. My goodness. Another opportunity not cashed in on. My. All right. Slight chance for a touchdown on an 11-12. The Bears return this for a touchdown. No, they do not. The score remains tied at 24. That is a momentum-changing play, so it shifts back. Minnesota is only +1 on the momentum. Chicago has a chance late in the game to take the lead and win this one. So we got a 5 and a 1 for 6. There's still going to be some time for Minnesota. A 10, 11, 13. 236 in the fourth. We rolled a 6. That falls within Minnesota's defensive control. And a 25. And a 25 is a quarterback sack. So the Purple People leaders get to Virgil Carter here. And we'll just roll to see the distance of the sack. It was a 7-yard loss. We remain tied at 24. The sack is a momentum-changing play, so it goes +2 to Minnesota again. And we'll roll for this next possession as time is winding down. Tied at 24 here at Metropolitan Stadium in Bloomington, Minnesota. And we got a 6 and a 4 for 10. And guess what? This game ends in a tie. Minnesota cannot capitalize on all of the turnovers by the Bears. Minnesota had a few turnovers as well. But the Vikings had several chances to win this game, to take the lead and win this game in the second half, and they failed to do so. So this one ends in a tie. There was no overtime back then. You know, you would have, I guess, sudden death in a playoff game. But the Vikings will go to 1-1-1. And Chicago, well, this is their real-life record. But in this replay, they would also be 1-1-1. I didn't do the totals on the quarters. I apologize for that. But the final score, I'll go back and do that. Final score is 24-24. And I have to apologize a little bit for my scatterbrainedness, if that's a word. I don't know. It happens every now and then when you get to be approaching retirement age. But if you hung out with me this afternoon, I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you stuck around till the end, I appreciate your patience. And I'll be back again in the near future with another video. And until then, take care.